volunteers tribute.
The Hunger Games was never afraid to push the limits when it came to young adult adaptations. As the movies went on, the plots got dark. But what if we told you the Hunger Games franchise was supposed to be even more twisted than what we saw on screen? Today we're uncovering why the filmmakers decided to leave out the parts of the storyline that are so dark you won't even believe actually happened in the books.
You want me to sing?
With a song like The Hanging Tree and a movie concept that focuses on the destruction of kids, it's hard to imagine that the Hunger Games films could have had a final result even more morbid than what we got. But for book readers, that darkness was a reality. The missing movie scenes start right from the first few chapters of the novel. Remember the Avox that works as a servant for Katniss in the Capitol after her first reaping? That wasn't the first time Katniss was meant to have seen her. In the first novel, while Katniss and Gale are on one of their usual hunting trips, they witness this girl being picked up by a Capitol hovercraft while the boy she was with was pierced through the chest.
Take off, live in the woods, it's what we do anyway.
They'd catch us.
Well, maybe not.
Of course, it's no surprise to us how dark the Capitol can be, but this scene at the beginning of the series would have definitely set the tone right away. It also showed Katniss and us that there truly was no way to escape your district or the Capitol. In a later book, there was also a scene where Katniss meets two people, Bonnie and Twill, attempting to escape District 8 after their families were taken in an uprising. They're in search of District 13, but when Katniss arrives in Mockingjay, she never sees them, which tells us that they most likely met their demise. Did these have a huge impact on the storyline? Not really. However, it would have shown us how powerful President Snow was before we even got to know him. And the dark themes continued throughout all three books, while the movies either altered the concept or cut them out completely.
Even if I don't make it.
During Katniss and Peeta's cuddly cave scene, Peeta was meant to come extremely close to passing away. Like, so close that Katniss tricked Peeta with a special broth dosed with sleep serum so she could fight at the cornucopia for medicine. And their rendezvous in the arena was supposed to result in Peeta losing his leg when they got back to the Capitol. The movie opted to make the cave scene more romantic than gruesome, and we're definitely not complaining. #Team Everlark. But on the other hand, it would have given a more in-depth look into how much the Hunger Games affects even the tributes that survive.
So what happens when we get back?
I don't know.
Speaking of the tributes, in the books, they weren't even safe after being eliminated. Remember how Peeta and Katniss become the winners? They fight off the final tribute, Cato, while the Capitol sends mutations into the arena. This might be a little disturbing, so brace yourselves. Those mutations were actually genetically modified to have the same hair and eyes as the fallen tributes. Yep. There was a mutation that looked just like Rue. We all knew the Capitol was twisted. We just didn't know to what level Suzanne Collins actually wrote them to be. And it wasn't just the Capitol that was a whole lot more intense. District 13 actually had some protocol of their own that got pretty dark. Remember Nightlock, the poisonous berry that Katniss threatened Snow with in the arena? Well, District 13 turned the berry into a pill that their soldiers carried with them in case they were compromised. We're not so sure why they left this out, but kept Katniss's line to Finnick, Nightlock, in the film.
Nightlock. Nightlock.
This little tidbit doesn't seem like much, but when you really think about it, proves how hardcore District 13 is, and how chaotic it would have been if the Capitol got any information on District 13 and their whereabouts. District 13 was more important to these soldiers than their own lives.
We all fled on our own. For this.
Left out scenes weren't the only things the filmmakers decided to crop out of the story.
Right.
There were plenty of characters and characters' backstories cut that would have really brought the films to a whole other level of darkness. Haymitch, everyone's favorite mentor.
Congratulations.
We love the movie Haymitch, but we can't help but wish they introduced his grim backstory instead of just brushing over it. He was, of course, a tribute in the 50th Hunger Games. Well, let's just say his time in the arena was comparable to how bad Katniss's was.
Embrace the probability of your imminent death.
He teamed up with the other District 12 tribute, Maysili Donner, and then held her as she passed from mutated birds sent from the Capitol. We never really got an answer on whether or not there may have been something deeper than friendship between Haymitch and Maysilly, but there is no denying he definitely cared deeply for her. Not only would his dark past have helped us understand Haymitch and his addiction problems, but Maysilly was actually Katniss's mom's BFF and the original owner of the Mockingjay pin. Talk about full circle.
Ready to work?
Yeah.
All right, good.
Now, moving on to some minor but still very important character stories. We have the rest of Katniss and Peeta's prep team. Katniss was close with more of her beauty squad than just Cinna.
You realize that your actions reflect badly on all of us?
And the same goes for Peeta, but we never really get to see those relationships develop on screen, which might have saved us a lot of heartache, because as you've probably guessed, the story didn't end well for a lot of them. While Katniss's team, Flavius, Vania, and Octavia, managed to escape, Peeta's team was sentenced to their demise on live television after the tributes held hands, before the Court of Quell. These characters would have made this scene of the tributes' unity even more meaningful, and shown how much of a true rebellion against Snow and the Capitol it actually was.
This is the revolution, and you are the Mockingjay.
So now that we've gone over how much darkness was cut out of the films, we can't help but wonder why. It's been mentioned before that scenes dealing with any foreshadowing were sometimes cut so as not to spoil anything for the audience. However, the only scenes we can think of that might have been a spoiler is Katniss meeting Bonnie and Twill and hearing about District 13.
13?
13, yes.
There, of course, is the obvious reason of time constraints.
TikTok.
The average movie is max 2 hours, and if they'd included every single book scene, we'd probably be sitting in the theater for a good 4 hours. But that doesn't answer the question as to why the majority of the scenes they decided to cut were a bit darker than those they kept in. However, we have an inkling that keeping the audience rating in check might have been a big factor in cutting out these darker scenes. No matter how dark and twisted the concept of Hunger Games is, at the end of the day, it's still a young adult series. That means the filmmakers had to be extra careful to make sure their rating never surpassed PG-13 for all 4 movies. If it didn't, the movies would have been made for an audience that probably didn't even have an idea of what the Hunger Games was.
Happy Hunger Games.
And may the odds be ever in your favor.
Of course, you could argue that as the movies went on, the audience got older, so they could have at the very least amped their rating up to a 14A, but then the continuity would have been messed up. Imagine if you had a tame version of the Hunger Games and then suddenly jumped to a catching fire that included all the horrors the books did. It definitely would have felt disjointed. Nonetheless, it was successful in films like Harry Potter where the characters were growing up alongside the audiences. It definitely could have been made possible. Why do you think they decided to keep the rating at a constant PG-13? Even with their more tame rating, all 4 Hunger Games films managed to keep their dark atmosphere without some of the book's most morbid scenes. Not to mention, they still managed to create a cultural phenomenon in the film world. But we can't help but wonder what the franchise could have been if the filmmakers had taken that leap down the dark path.
There's a particular savvy in that, isn't there?
Would you watch a more twisted version of the Hunger Games? Don't forget to let us know below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you in another video. Thanks for watching.